Right. Good morning, Christ Universal Temple. Help me say thank you to Miss Keisha McFarland for blessing us on this morning. Help me say thank you to, and we still haven't ironed this out. Like when the men sing and when the women sing, like we still haven't ironed out what we call it when this is the blessing we get. So help me say thank you to the women's choir, to the women's chorale, to the women's chorus, all of the above. Yeah, give it to them. Yeah, look like you're having fun too. Monte and Martin do such a wonderful job taking. Now, I'm only speaking for myself. Don't feel any kind of way when I say this. They do a wonderful job taking straw and turning it into gold. To those of you joining us by stream, we want to bless you and we welcome you right where you are. We give thanks for this opportunity to fellowship with you and bless you for taking time out of your day, out of your life to be here so that you might get filled back up so that as you go about your week, you'll have something to pull on in the event that you need it. Is that all right? And so without any further ado, I have to say happy Father's Day to fathers of any stripe, whether you are a biological father, a surrogate father, a stepfather, an uncle playing father, a spiritual father, whatever role you play, a mentor, whatever role you play as fathers, help me celebrate fathers today. Yeah. You see, I'm of the opinion that fathers are an underappreciated commodity. Yeah, I'm of the opinion. But today is our day in the sun. Today we celebrate the man who had to go through childbirth with no anesthetic. Today we celebrate the guy who carried pictures of his children where their money used to be. Today we honor and recognize the men who stand next to their wives or their women while they cry openly, but the men die inwardly. Today we appreciate the men who give their daughters away to other men who aren't nearly as good enough, with the hope that they can have children who are smarter than everybody else's children. Today we celebrate fathers. And as men and fathers, we too deserve to be in relationships where we are honored, appreciated, and celebrated. Yes. The challenge sometimes, though, is that as men, we have we've adopted patterns. And those patterns become the basis of our behavior. They become the vault of our thinking. And oftentimes those patterns are such that we find ourselves causing damage to the people that we love. And so today is a good day for us to just at least in our own souls do the work that we might need to do in order to heal some of the damage that has been caused. The good news is, brothers, that we can recondition any pattern, we can make better decisions, and we can behave in ways that consistently promote healthy masculinity. Is when you run into a man who knows he's a man and he's proud of the kind of man that he is, when you run into a man who's good with being a father and who accepts his responsibility and who says you can hold me accountable for my part in the life that we've helped create it, how many of you know there's a difference between a father and a donor? But when you run into a real man, when you encounter a real dude, when you bump up against and you rub shoulders, David, with a cat who is good in his masculinity and he is okay with what he brings to the table and who he is at the party. When you encounter a man who can take the mask off and be vulnerable when he feels like it, and be a protector when he has to. I remember one time Sylvia and I had been out at night, and we must have been partying real good because we were both in a deep sleep and our children were in the other room after we made it home. And when we pulled into the garage, we left our garage door open. And so our neighbor came to ring the doorbell, and as they were ringing the doorbell, it didn't wake us up. And she started banging on the door, and as she was banging on the door, it didn't wake us up. And next thing you know, she wasn't sure what was happening, so our neighbor called the police. And when the police came into the house through the garage, they were saying, like, "Is anyone home? Is anyone home?" And Sylvia tapped me. She said, "I think I hear somebody in the house." And I must have rolled out of the bed and jumped out in my skivvies and everything, and I'm getting ready to hit the door, and she said, "Wait a minute, don't run out there." Because on the other side of the door was in fact the police. But my first instinct was to protect what I hold near and dear to me. And it didn't matter to me what was on the other side of the door, because I was getting ready to hold down what was my responsibility to protect. And so I would have given my life on that night just to make sure that my family was okay. Fathering is a call. See, it's not just a job. It's a call. And when you don't understand that fathering is a call, it's easy to underappreciate somebody you didn't call. See, when the telemarketer just dials your number up and you happen to pick up the phone, there's no appreciation for what they have to offer. But if there is a call that you are expecting, when we receive it, it's a good thing. And so today we want to just give ourselves an opportunity to recondition those patterns. We want to give ourselves a chance to make some better decisions. We want to take responsibility and accountability for behaving in some new ways, because, men, we are too important to the homes that we head up. We're too critical to the communities we stand in. We're too important to the places that we were planted in. So it's important that we show up consistent with the design and the DNA that was placed in us. Is that all right? A father's role is a role of leadership. And the role of leadership is the role of influence. But how many of you recognize that when you have influence, you have to use it for the greater good? Am I the only one who recognizes that? Yeah, didn't talk to me. And so today I just want to share 6 characteristics that will enable fathers to lead exceptionally well. This is not an exhaustive list. This is not the end all be all. It's just some characteristics that can help us do what we do better. And I want to invite us right here at this stage to not judge ourselves in the event that we haven't lived up to the call. Because I believe we all make the best decision we can make at the time we make it. Let me say it to you this way. We all do the best we can from the level of awareness we have at the moment we have it. You can't make a decision better than the decision you made, even if you had other options. And so when you know better, that's right, talk to me. So the first characteristic I want us to look at as a means by which to bolster our toolkit as fathers, as men, as husbands, is to just be faithful. To be faithful. What do I mean by being faithful? I mean being faithful to the call of fatherhood. When we think about this word faith, the scripture tells us that sometimes we have to walk by faith and not by sight. When we think about being faithful, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so sometimes as fathers, when we are at the early stage of fatherhood, it looks like the challenge might be bigger than we're up to. Sometimes we choose the exit route instead of the tenacity route. But it requires us to be faithful to the call of fatherhood. When we are faithful, the things that we promise we'll do, we keep our promise. Is that right? Yes. The word believe in the Greek means to live by. And so when we are faithful, we live by what we say, we do what we say we're going to do, and when we say it, you can take it to the bank. It's as good as done. When we are faithful, people don't just have to hear us say we love them. Our actions tell the story. Is that right? When I'm faithful, if I say I'm going to show up, I show up. Because the reality is, if you say you're going to show up, there is some child waiting with great anticipation for the promise that you, Dad, and you alone can bring. And when I don't show up, it breaks the trust and it impacts my ability to lead and be counted on. It impacts my ability to be believed. And so the first thing we want to do is be faithful to the call of fatherhood. Second thing we want to do is be available. Somebody say available. In sports vernacular, they say the best ability is availability. If you've been paying attention to the recent NBA championships, the Golden State Warriors, who have long been considered one of the modern day dynasties, they just lost to the Toronto Raptors. Is that right? And the prominent thinking is that they lost because their best players were oftentimes not available. Now, I believe in this instance, sports is imitating life in that we lose the game of how to help our children win in life when we are not available for them. And here is the thing. It is possible that there can be people who stand in, subs they call them, in the NBA. There might be men who can stand in as substitutes. But if you the star of the team, you the star of the team. And sometimes even when you're injured, you got to figure out how to play hurt. Because playing hurt, even if it costs you, communicates to your entire family that I'm willing to put everything on the line so that you at least get a shot to win the game of life. Got to be available. And availability doesn't just show up in one way. Availability shows up in a number of ways. When we were giving birth to my second son, when we were giving birth to my son, I'm using the royal we. When we were giving birth to my son, we were at the hospital. By we, I mean our first lady. And I was, I would say babysitting, but it's not really babysitting if you got your own children. And I had my daughter. And mom didn't get a chance to do her hair before the labor pain started. And so I was blessed with the task of doing my daughter Malika's hair so that she and I could go see mom at the hospital. And so no job is too large or too small when you are a father. And so I get the grease and I get the comb and I sit baby girl right in between my legs. And as I sit her in between my legs, I'm going to work because listen, I can do this. I've done many things before. I've combed my own hair. Surely I can comb my daughter's hair, and I put a part right down the middle of her hair because I've seen her mother do it before, and I'm gonna put some braids on this side. I'm gonna put some braids on that side. I might do 2 or 3 or I might do 2 or 4 or 6 or 8. Who knows? I'm just gonna let it work and see how it flows. But I start to put parts in the sides that I just created. So I've got 2 parts. Now I got more parts to the parts. And I take the front part of her hair and I begin to braid it. Then I move to the other side of her head and I begin to braid it. And before you know it, my daughter Malika has 6 beautiful braids in her hair. Now, we get in the car and we drive to the hospital. And we get to the hospital, Ruth, and we walk into the hospital room. And the moment we walked into the hospital room, both my wife and my daughter began to cry at the look of her hair. And my daughter says to her mother, "Daddy gave me pony dogs. I was trying to do ponytails, but apparently my ponytail skill wasn't what I thought it was." But I was there and available to at least learn that I don't know much about braiding hair. But when it comes to being available, we have to be there physically, we have to be there mentally, we have to be there emotionally, and we have to be there spiritually. One of the greatest opportunities for me to learn was when I was having a rough patch. And remember that behavior I was telling you about earlier, how those patterns help generate certain behaviors. And I was stuck in a pattern and I was behaving in certain ways that were destructive to my family. And I wanted to be able to talk to my father because I believed that my father would be able to help me see it in a different way. See, it's one of the few times that I've really wanted to be able to talk to my father. And in wanting to be able to talk to him and in not being able to talk to him, it helped me to better understand and appreciate just the power that comes with being available. Fathers, we have to be available. The next thing we have to be is a teacher. Someone say teacher. And as someone who grew up poor, as someone who grew up wanting, as someone who thought that money was the key to all my problems, it became important to me that I provided for my children in ways that I was not provided for. But here is what I learned, Walt. I learned that in giving them things, the things that I gave them were not equivalent to some of the things that I could have put in them. And so I had to send my son to the Navy because he needed more discipline. Now, I have discipline and I am disciplined, but I didn't put enough discipline in my son. to help him know that he could make it through anything. I knew how to give it to him, but I didn't always know how to put it in him. And so as a teacher, what you help put in your children is far more important than what you give them. Khalil Gibran says it this way. Khalil Gibran says, no man can reveal to you aught but that which already lies half asleep in the dawning of your knowledge. He says, the father as teacher, that's my words, the father as teacher who walks in the shadow of the temple among his followers, his children, gives not of wisdom, but rather of his faith and his lovingness. And if he is indeed wise, he does not bode you into the house of his wisdom, but rather lead you to the threshold of your own mind. So then the opportunity is to show your children what's in them, to point them in that direction, rather than to give them things that can never fill up for the spaces that might be missing. What is a father? A father is a hero. A father is a hero. He is often the first hero of both his daughter and his son. But can I tell you what I really appreciate about heroes? Particularly superheroes? You don't have to be perfect, Earl, to be a hero. If you saw the Avengers Endgame, any of you see the Avengers Endgame? Did you see Fat Thor? I love me some Fat Thor. He is a God who has lost himself. And now he just wants to eat and drink. That remind you of anybody? Oh, don't just keep looking this way. I'm not asking if it reminds you of anybody who's with you. But you don't have to be perfect in order to be a hero. Are you with me? And can we drill down on this for a second? When I say you don't have to be perfect to be a hero, here is what I mean. You don't have to have a good, healthy, working relationship with the mother of your child in order to be in your child's life. It's better if you do. It's ideal if you do. It's wonderful if you do. But sometimes, as they say, people come into our lives for a reason, some for a season, and some for a lifetime. The relationship with your children is intended to be a lifetime one. The relationship with the one you had with might not be. So you don't have to force yourself into a relationship that does not work in order to be a father to your child. See, your child might want daddy and mommy to be together, but sometimes daddy and mommy just don't work well together. Outside of the one event, there's nothing else in common. Are you with me? And so you don't have to be a hero. I mean, you don't have to be perfect to be a hero. You can find common ground with the mother of your children. We call them baby mamas in the hood, or BMs. I like how y'all pretending like y'all know what that means. What is that? What is that, Rev? What is this BM you speak of? I know what a baby mama is. And you know what a baby daddy is. Am I right about it? You don't have to be perfect in order to be a hero for your children, for you as a father. You might question your ability to be a father. Because here is what I discovered. There is no book that perfectly tells you what it's going to take in order to father children. There is no book that tells you the ideal way or gives you the clear roadmap for how to be a father. Some of it is just on-the-job training. And you learn. Some of you get it right, some of you get it wrong. The main thing is to do whatever you can to avoid killing your child. Can I have a true confession moment? Because I think I always prayed, Lord, healthy children. But because I had no biological brothers, I think I wanted a son, just so I could have somebody to play with. And my daughter Malika showed up first, and Mikhail came second. And my God, for the first year of her life, I was in the Navy, so I was not with her, and so the period of bonding didn't happen for us. Are you with me? The period of bonding, that there is a period of attachment and there is a period of bonding that happens in a mother. Attachment and bonding happen in the mother, but bonding happens for the father. And that period generally happens in the first few months. For the first year of her life, I was still in California while they were here. And so that period of bonding, we didn't have that time, and it troubled me that I came home and one of my good brothers had a closer relationship with my daughter than I did. It troubled my soul. And I always wanted a boy. So the older she got, the more we roughhoused. The older she got, Don, the more we played. Until I accidentally knocked her tooth out. And her mama put an end to all of that playing right there on the spot. My point is, you don't have to be perfect in order to be a hero. One of the next characteristics of a father is to be an example. Now, for many men, not all men, for many men, regardless of age, generally speaking, most men tend to be driven toward four things: either status, access, power, or stuff. That's what drives many of us, not all of us, but many of us. We want status, we want access, we want to be a part of. One of the reasons gang culture is as strong as it is because gangs give you access. We want power, we want stuff. But I believe it was Stephen Covey who said, when our ladder is leaning up against the wrong wall, every step we take up the ladder gets us closer to the wrong place faster. And so I want to encourage us as exemplary fathers and as exemplary men to make sure that our children see us with a holistic prayer life. See, we always talk about when mama prayed or when grandmama prayed, but we rarely talk about when dad prays. Now, that doesn't mean that dad is not praying. See, because dad doesn't pray like mom prays. When mom prays, you'll probably hear mom saying things like, Lord, you know I need to feed these kids, come on through. Lord, I need you today more than I did yesterday. You might hear mom just walking through the house talking about it. But dad will probably resort to his cave, and when he's in his cave, when he's in his secret place, he'll do what he needs to do in order to make contact with the Lord, because he knows that with God, he can't make it by himself. And so when we as fathers pray for our families, things begin to move. When we as fathers hold the truth for our families, things begin to shift. When we as fathers begin to see the potential in them and not just the problems for them, things begin to change. Because there's something about how your dad sees that. There's something about how he sees himself in you and your ability to get through it. And so I just want to encourage us as one of our tools to have an exemplary prayer life as examples of fathers. Last but not least, we have to be reliable. Simply put, we can be counted on. Just two things I want to give you right here. The first thing, in order to be reliable, dad, father, brother, is just to be honest with yourself, right? To just be honest with yourself. If you're not going to come, say you're not coming. If you're not committed to it, say you're not committed to it. If you're just playing, say you're just playing. If it's hard for you, say it's hard for you. If you're not sure you can do it, say you're not sure you can do it. And I know that we talk about what we speak out, but what I'm saying is, in your own soul, be honest with yourself. Locate yourself. Where are you? See, when God was talking to Adam in the garden, one of the things that God did for Adam, once Adam followed the direction of his feeling nature. See, when you won't be your own head, it leads you in the wrong direction. And so God finds Adam unclothed, and God says to him, Adam, where are you? And Adam thinks that he can hide from God, but in order to be reliable, in order to be dependable, in order to be stable, and in order to be able, you've got to locate yourself. Where are you? Because the only way our families get better is if those of us who are supposed to be responsible and those of us who are supposed to be accountable, if those of us who have been given the charge and been given the task and been given the call, if we will stand in our space and say, come hell or high water, I'm committed to my family. I might make some mistakes. I might do some things that put our family in jeopardy. I might drink up the money. I might not pay the bill. But no, Cuddy, I'm doing the best I can right where I am. And so in order to be reliable, you got to be honest to yourself. The second thing you've got to do in order to be reliable is you got to be committed to bigger things. And what could be bigger than the father who sets his family up for the destiny that is before them? What could be bigger than the father who is faithful? What could be bigger than the father who is available? What's bigger than the father who teaches us? What's bigger than the father who serves as a hero for us? What can be greater than the father who is there for us? The father who is reliable for us. Because when a man shows up, God shows out. And God is ready to be the example in your life, for your family, in your community, and in this world. And God is intending to do it through you, Father. God bless you. Love you. Happy Father's Day. Thank you for your time and your attention.